The most powerful goodbye is calm, not cruel, and I need you to understand why that matters. Because when you're hurt, cruelty can feel like strength. When your heart has been stretched by inconsistency, by silence, by half promises and half presence, you want to say the thing that finally makes them feel it. You want the sentence that stings. You want the line that makes them regret. You want to leave a mark the way they left one in you. But cruelty is not power. Cruelty is pain looking for somewhere to go. Cruelty is the nervous system saying, I can't hold this hurt, so I need to hand it back. And I'm not judging you for wanting that, because you've been carrying too much alone. You've been swallowing your needs. You've been explaining your feelings to a wall. You've been trying to be patient in a relationship that kept asking you to shrink. So of course your heart wants one final moment where they finally understand. But with an avoidant, cruelty gives them an escape route. Cruelty gives them a story. Cruelty gives them a reason to retreat and say, see, this is why closeness is dangerous. This is why emotions are chaos. This is why I needed space. Cruelty makes you the problem in their mind, and that protects them from facing the truth, that they created this outcome through their inconsistency and their fear. Calm goodbye takes that escape route away. Calm goodbye doesn't scream. Calm goodbye doesn't beg. Calm goodbye doesn't threaten. Calm goodbye doesn't try to win. Calm goodbye simply closes the door with dignity, and that is what shakes them, because there is nothing to argue with, nothing to blame, nothing to hide behind. Just consequence. A calm goodbye says, I'm not leaving because I hate you. I'm leaving because I finally love myself enough to stop bleeding here. I'm not trying to punish you. I'm protecting my peace. I'm not trying to make you regret. I'm ending the dynamic that keeps hurting me. And that kind of goodbye hits deeper than any insult, because it carries a quiet finality. It carries the energy of a woman who has stopped negotiating her worth. And I know you might be thinking, but if I'm calm, will they even care? Will they even notice? Listen to me. The avoidant doesn't always notice your pain, but they notice your absence when it is real. They notice when your energy stops orbiting them. They notice when your warmth is no longer available on demand. They notice when the door closes without drama, because drama keeps you attached, and attachment is still access. So calm is the power move, because calm is detachment with dignity. Calm is you refusing to give them one last emotional performance. Calm is you refusing to hand them your heart in a paragraph they will skim. Calm is you refusing to teach them that they can pull you into chaos whenever they want. Calm is you showing them that you can love and still leave. And this is what makes the goodbye message shatter them, not the words, the energy of certainty, the energy of self-respect, the energy of someone who is no longer available for half love. Because avoidants are used to people who leave loudly and return quietly. They're used to people who say, I'm done, and then text again 2 days later. They are used to your boundaries being emotional, not real. They are used to you cracking when you miss them. So the goodbye that hits is the goodbye that is backed by stability, the goodbye that doesn't come with a second act. And to do that, you have to say goodbye from the highest place in you, not the wounded place in you. You have to speak from the part of you that is tired but clear, the part of you that grieved but grew, the part of you that understands this is not about proving anything, this is about choosing peace. So a calm goodbye is short, because long messages invite debate. Long messages invite them to pick apart your feelings, to argue details, to deflect accountability, to respond with vagueness. A calm goodbye is simple. It names the truth. It names the decision. It ends the conversation. Something like, I care about you, but this connection doesn't give me the consistency and clarity I need. I'm stepping away to protect my peace. I wish you well, and I'm not available for this dynamic anymore. That is calm. That is clear. That is not cruel, because cruelty would be, you'll regret this. You're broken, you're incapable, you never cared. Cruelty is trying to injure. Calm is trying to heal. And here is the emotional part. Calm goodbye requires you to hold the grief without handing it to them. It requires you to sit with the ache without using them as medicine. It requires you to stop seeking relief through contact. Because part of why you want to send a dramatic message is that it keeps the cord attached. It keeps the door cracked. It keeps the connection alive, even if it's through conflict. Calm goodbye cuts the cord, and that is terrifying, because the cord, even when it hurt you, still felt like connection. So you will feel the urge to send more, to clarify, to explain, to soften, to take it back, to ask for one more conversation. And this is where the calm goodbye becomes real. When you don't follow it with chaos. When you don't check if they've seen it. When you don't send a follow-up. When you don't break the boundary because you miss them. Because the power of a calm goodbye is not that it sounds mature, the power is that it is final. Final does not mean hateful. Final means protective. Final means I'm not going to reopen this wound. Final means I'm not going to keep hoping you become someone else. Final means I'm not going to keep paying for love with my anxiety. Final means I'm done turning my dignity into a bargaining chip. And this is why calm goodbye can trigger regret, because regret needs clarity. Regret needs consequence. Regret needs the moment they realize she's not fighting, she's not begging, she's not blaming, she's just gone. And when you remove drama, they can't distract themselves from the loss by calling you too emotional. They have to face the emptiness where your energy used to be. But I want to protect you from something. Don't choose calm goodbye to get regret. Choose calm goodbye to get peace. Because regret is not guaranteed, and you cannot build your healing on whether they feel something. You build your healing on what you choose. You build your healing on what you allow. You build your healing on the promise you make to yourself, I will not abandon me again. So let your goodbye be calm. Let it be clean. Let it be kind. Not because they deserve kindness, but because you deserve dignity. Because one day when you look back, you won't be proud that you hurt them. You'll be proud that you didn't let their pattern turn you into someone you don't recognize. You'll be proud that you ended it with grace. You'll be proud that you chose your peace over your pride. And if that goodbye shatters them, it will not be because your words were sharp. It will be because your self-respect was real, and for the first time, your love was no longer available without consistency, and they felt what it means to lose a woman who cared deeply, but finally chose herself. Avoidants don't break from anger, they break from clean finality. And if you've ever tried to make them feel it through emotion, you already know why. Anger gives them something to react to. Tears give them something to manage. Long messages give them something to dodge. Drama gives them a reason to retreat and say, this is why I needed space. It becomes a familiar story for them. Closeness equals chaos, emotions equal pressure, love equals responsibility I don't want. And the moment they can tell themselves that story, they feel justified, and justification is the greatest painkiller for an avoidant. But clean finality is different. Clean finality doesn't offer a story. It doesn't give them a villain. It doesn't give them an argument. It doesn't even give them a second chance to perform comfort, and then disappear again. Clean finality is the quiet door closing without a slam, and that is what makes their nervous system finally register loss. Because avoidants are often experts at living in the grey. The grey is where they feel safe. The grey is where nothing is promised, nothing is demanded, nothing is fully owned. The grey is where they can come close when it feels good, and pull away when it feels intense, and the relationship stays suspended in a place where they never have to face the full weight of their choices. In the grey, they can say I care without showing up. In the grey, they can say I'm not ready without losing you. In the grey, they can disappear and return, and your love will still be there, waiting, explaining, forgiving, hoping. So the reason anger doesn't break them is because anger keeps the grey alive. Anger is still contact. Anger is still energy. Anger is still your heart orbiting them. Even if you're furious, you are still engaged, still invested, still pulling them into the center of your emotional world. And to an avoidant, that still feels like control. It still feels like access. It still feels like I can leave, and she'll still be here reacting to me. Clean finality removes your reaction. Clean finality removes your orbit. Clean finality removes the comfort of knowing they can always come back and find you in the same place. It is the first time they feel the full, quiet consequence of their distance, because you are no longer participating in the cycle. And that is why it breaks them. Not in a cruel way, but in a reality way. Because an avoidant can numb out from your anger, but they can't numb out from your absence when it is real. They can block emotion, but they struggle to block consequence. They can call you dramatic, but they can't call you dramatic when you leave with calm dignity. They can blame your intensity, but they can't blame your intensity when you are quiet, kind, and final. Finality is terrifying to an avoidant because it removes their safety behavior. Their safety behavior is distance with a return option. They want the freedom to pull away without the risk of truly losing you. They want to know the door is still cracked. They want to know they can reach out later, on their terms, and still receive warmth. That is the core of the pattern: control of access, control of timing, control of closeness. So when you offer clean finality, you remove that control. You make closeness a real choice with a real cost. And this is when their nervous system wakes up, because the option is gone. The possibility of returning later without consequences is gone. The comfort of half access is gone. And in that moment, they finally feel what you've been feeling: uncertainty, loss, discomfort, the weight of something slipping away. But hear this carefully, clean finality is not a performance. It is not you trying to seem unbothered. It is not you trying to appear strong while you are collapsing inside. Clean finality is you deciding that your heart will no longer live in limbo. It's you choosing to end the cycle instead of begging for it to change. It's you understanding that if someone wants to be with you, they can show up. And if they can't show up, then you stop sacrificing your peace just to keep them near. And that decision is deeply emotional, because it requires you to accept something you didn't want to accept, that love is not enough if it is not matched by effort. That connection is not enough if it is not followed by consistency. That chemistry is not enough if it is built on anxiety. Clean finality is you saying, I'm not going to keep living in hope, I'm going to live in truth. It is you saying, I'm not waiting for your readiness. It is you saying, I'm not available for disappearing and returning. It is you saying, I choose peace, and I'm willing to lose what costs me my dignity. And this is where it shatters them, because you become unfamiliar. You become the one person who doesn't chase. You become the one person who doesn't fight for the grey. You become the one person who doesn't keep the door open with emotional bargaining. Your calm makes them face something they avoid, the finality of consequence. And it also shatters you open in a different way. It shatters the version of you that was willing to accept crumbs. It shatters the habit of reaching for relief. It shatters the belief that if you just loved harder, they would show up. It breaks the spell, and in that breaking you return to yourself. Now, the reason this works, if anything works, is that clean finality interrupts the cycle of intermittent reinforcement. One day they're warm, the next day they're distant. One day they're present, the next day they vanish. Your nervous system gets addicted to the good moments because they feel rare, and the rare moments feel precious. So you keep trying, keep waiting, keep hoping, because your brain says, maybe the next time will be the time they stay. Clean finality ends that. It says, no more roulette with my heart, no more gambling with my peace. And yes, when you do that, they may suddenly reach out. They may suddenly feel panic. They may suddenly chase. Because the only thing that makes an avoidant move is the fear of losing access, not the fear of your anger. Anger they can survive. Loss they can't ignore. But here is the part that protects you. Clean finality is not a bait. You don't do it to provoke a chase. You do it because you mean it. Because if you do it to provoke a chase, you will reopen the door the moment they knock, and the cycle will return stronger, and you will feel even more broken than before. So clean finality is you closing the door and staying closed. Not to punish, but to protect. Not to control them, but to reclaim you. And if they feel regret, it will come from facing the one thing they can't blame, your calm decision to stop participating. It will come from realizing they lost someone who was willing to love deeply, but no longer willing to be half loved. And if they don't feel regret, you still win, because your peace stops being something you beg for and becomes something you build, one quiet, final, self-respecting day at a time. Regret isn't triggered by drama, it's triggered by consequences, and I know that can feel unfair, because you've already paid a price. You paid with your patience. You paid with your anxiety. You paid with nights where you stared at your phone and tried to convince yourself you were fine. You paid with the effort of holding a connection together, while they drifted in and out like love was something they could pick up when convenient and put down when it felt heavy. So when you hear consequences, part of you thinks, why do I have to be the one who creates them? Why do I have to be the one who loses in order for them to finally feel it? But this is the painful truth about avoidant dynamics. As long as they can retreat without cost, they don't have to change. As long as they can disappear and return to warmth, they don't have to face themselves. As long as your love remains available on demand, they can keep living in the fantasy that nothing is really lost. They can keep the door half open in their mind, even if they treat you like you're replaceable. So regret, real regret, isn't a sudden emotional punch from your angry paragraph. Avoidance can numb out from paragraphs. They can rationalize them. They can dismiss them. They can say, you're too intense. You're too emotional. You're proving my point. Drama becomes a distraction. Drama becomes a shield. Drama gives them a story where they don't have to face what they did. They only have to face how you reacted. Consequences remove the story. Consequences remove the shield. Consequences don't argue with them. Consequences don't plead. Consequences don't perform. Consequences simply exist. And that is what makes regret possible. Because regret needs a felt experience of loss. It needs the moment their nervous system realizes, the thing I took for granted is not here anymore. And that realization rarely happens while you're still available, still responding, still hoping, still explaining, still checking in. still offering access in small doses. If your energy is still orbiting them, they may feel guilty, they may feel annoyed, they may feel pressured, but they don't feel loss, because you're still there. So consequences begin the moment you stop cushioning the impact of their choices. You stop making their distance comfortable. You stop making their inconsistency survivable. You stop rewarding their breadcrumbs with full access. You stop treating their return like a reunion when they haven't repaired what they broke. You stop being the emotional safety net that catches them after every disappearance. And I want you to understand something important. Consequences are not punishment. Punishment is meant to hurt. Consequences are meant to reveal reality. Punishment says, feel my pain. Consequences say, feel the result of your behavior. That's why consequences hit deeper. Because they are not emotional warfare, they are truth. So what does this look like? Emotionally and practically, in your goodbye. It looks like you stop doing the things that keep them safe from losing you. You stop offering reassurance. You stop providing emotional labor. You stop being available for late-night messages that lead nowhere. You stop being the person who makes it easy for them to keep a connection without committing to it. You stop being a place they visit when they're lonely. And that is hard, because your love wants to give. Your heart wants to soothe. Your empathy wants to understand. Your fear wants to hold on. But consequences are born the day you decide, my empathy will not cost me my self-respect. Because the avoidance comfort is often built on your flexibility. Their comfort is built on your willingness to accept vague. Their comfort is built on your willingness to wait. Their comfort is built on your willingness to give more than you receive. And when you finally stop doing that, you remove their comfort, and that's when the reality starts to hit. They feel it when they realize you don't answer instantly. They feel it when they realize you don't keep the conversation alive. They feel it when they realize your warmth is not guaranteed. They feel it when they realize you are no longer emotionally accessible. They feel it when they realize their words don't reset the cycle anymore. They feel it when they realize the door is not cracked. And that is when regret can begin, not because you wounded them, but because you stopped rescuing them from the consequences of losing you. But let's be honest, consequences don't always trigger regret immediately. Avoidants often feel relief first, relief that the pressure is gone, relief that the emotional intensity is quiet, relief that they have space again. And that relief can be confusing to you if you're watching from a distance, because you think, see, they never cared. But relief doesn't mean they didn't care. Relief often means their nervous system is calming down. It means the immediate anxiety of closeness is gone. It means they can breathe. Regret often comes later, when the relief wears off and the emptiness remains. Regret comes when they realize the space isn't temporary. Regret comes when they realize your energy isn't waiting. Regret comes when they realize you aren't available to soothe them anymore. Regret comes when they realize the version of you who used to forgive quickly is no longer there. Regret comes when they run into a moment where they used to reach for you and you're gone. Because that's the other thing about avoidance. They often miss you most when they need comfort, not when they are comfortable. They miss you when stress hits. They miss you when loneliness shows up. They miss you when they realize their distractions don't fill the void. They miss you when their pride can't protect them from the quiet. And if your consequences are real, they can't quickly return and get a hit of your warmth to numb that feeling. They have to sit with it. And sitting with it is what triggers reflection. Sitting with it is what triggers regret. Sitting with it is what forces them to face, maybe I lost someone rare, but I need to protect you here, because consequences are not a strategy to control them. Consequences are a boundary to protect you. If you create consequences just to get regret, you will undo them the moment they show emotion, and the cycle will restart. You will accept crumbs again. You will reward a moment of guilt with full access, and then they'll retreat again, and you'll feel shattered again. So the consequence has to be real. It has to be consistent. It has to be backed by your behavior. That means your goodbye is not just words. It is the end of your emotional availability. It is the end of your chasing. It is the end of your bargaining. It is the end of being someone's option. And the deepest part of this is that consequences trigger something even more important than their regret. They trigger your healing. Because when you stop cushioning their behavior, you stop opening your wound every time they reach out. You stop handing your nervous system to their timing. You stop living in the roller coaster of intermittent affection. You step off. So yes, regret is triggered by consequences, and if they feel it, it will come from the reality that you are no longer available for half love. But even if they never feel it, your consequences will still save you. Because you will finally stop paying for connection with your peace. You will stop donating your love to someone who won't return it with consistency. And that is the real victory. Not that they regret losing you, but that you stop losing yourself. Your goodbye must protect your heart, not try to control theirs. And this is the moment where your pain wants to reach for power. Because when you've been hurt by someone who pulls close and then disappears, who gives warmth and then goes cold, who keeps you in uncertainty while you keep showing up, your nervous system starts craving one thing: control. Control of the outcome. Control of their feelings. Control of whether they regret. Control of whether they finally understand what they did. And it makes sense, because in an avoidant dynamic, you often felt powerless. You felt like your needs didn't matter. You felt like the relationship was on their terms. You felt like you were always adjusting, always waiting, always softening yourself to keep the connection alive. So now, at the end, your heart wants the final move to land. It wants the goodbye message that forces a reaction, forces remorse, forces regret. But listen carefully. The goodbye that tries to control them keeps you emotionally tied to them. It keeps your healing dependent on their response. It keeps your peace hostage to whether they reply the right way. It keeps you checking your phone not for love, but for validation, for proof that you mattered. And that is not protection. That is another form of abandonment, because you're still giving them the power to decide how you feel. Protection is different. Protection is you choosing closure even if they never give you one. Protection is you choosing peace even if they never apologize. Protection is you choosing self-respect even if they never recognize your value. Protection is you taking your heart out of a situation where it keeps getting bruised and holding it with both hands like something sacred. Because your heart has been doing too much. It has been translating silence. It has been excusing distance. It has been turning crumbs into hope. It has been surviving on moments. And at some point, love that survives on moments becomes a kind of starvation. You start craving the smallest signs. You start feeling relieved by basic decency. You start calling inconsistency a face. You start calling your anxiety chemistry. And protection is the moment you stop. So your goodbye must be written for one person, you. Not to punish them. Not to impress them. Not to trigger them. Not to win. To end the cycle that has been hurting you. And that means your goodbye is not a courtroom. It's not a list of charges. It's not a speech that tries to make them agree. Because if they were the kind of person who could sit with your truth and respond with empathy, you wouldn't be here needing a shattering message. Your goodbye must be clean enough that you don't need them to validate it. It must be simple enough that you don't get pulled into debate. It must be calm enough that it doesn't give them a reason to hide behind your emotion. Because here is what an avoidant often does when confronted: they deflect. They minimize, they go cold, they get vague, they disappear. They turn it into a story about your intensity, your needs, your timing, your pressure. And if your goodbye is designed to control them, you will keep feeding that story. You'll send another message to clarify, another to explain, another to defend your feelings. And now you're not saying goodbye anymore. You're back in the loop, chasing closure that never arrives. Protection says, I refuse to re-enter the loop. Protection says, I will not give you another opportunity to make me doubt myself. Protection says, I will not audition for basic care. Protection says, I will not explain my worth to someone who already saw it and still chose distance. So what does a protective goodbye sound like? It sounds like truth without attack. It sounds like clarity without cruelty. It sounds like a decision without a negotiation. It can be as simple as, I care about you, but this dynamic isn't healthy for me. I need consistency and clarity, and this connection hasn't provided that. I'm stepping away and I won't be continuing contact. I truly wish you well. Do you feel that? It's not begging. It's not threatening. It's not asking them to agree. It's not asking for a reply. It's a boundary. And the most important part of protecting your heart is what comes after. Because the goodbye message is not what ends the relationship. Your behavior ends it. Your behavior is the real boundary. Your behavior is the real closure. Protection means you do not keep the door cracked for breadcrumbs. Protection means you do not respond to late-night nostalgia. Protection means you do not let loneliness rewrite your standards. Protection means you do not take one message as proof of change. Protection means you do not allow your heart to be reopened by someone who hasn't done the work to handle it carefully. And this is where you will feel the ache. You will feel the emptiness. You will feel the urge to reach out when you remember a good moment. You will feel the urge to check their social media. You will feel the urge to send one more message to make sure they understood. But that urge is not love, it's withdrawal. It's your nervous system craving the familiar loop. And protection is you saying, I will let this craving pass without making contact. Because every time you break your goodbye, you teach yourself that your boundaries don't matter. You teach yourself that your pain is negotiable. You teach yourself that you cannot trust your own decisions. And the deepest wound in these dynamics is not just what they did. It's what you did to yourself to stay, the times you ignored your intuition, the times you accepted less, the times you doubted your worth. So protection is you rebuilding trust with yourself. It is you keeping your word. It is you honoring your own line. It is you choosing dignity even when you miss them. It is you allowing grief without turning it into a text. It is you realizing that closure is not something you receive. It is something you create. And the part that will change your life is this: when you protect your heart, you stop living for their regret. You stop needing them to feel something for you to feel whole. You stop trying to control their emotions to validate your pain. You step out of their nervous system and back into your own. Because let's be real, they may feel regret, they may not. They may come back, they may not. They may miss you, they may not. But your healing cannot depend on the emotional weather inside someone who has already shown you they struggle with consistency. Your healing depends on you choosing a life where love is steady, where love is safe, where love doesn't require you to beg. So let your goodbye protect you. Let it be calm enough that you don't feel ashamed later. Let it be clear enough that you don't feel confused later. Let it be final enough that you don't keep reopening the wound, because the goal is not to shatter them. The goal is to stop shattering yourself. The goal is not to control their regret. The goal is to reclaim your peace. And when you do that, whether they ever feel regret or not, you will finally feel something stronger than regret. You will feel free. Message is less about words and more about what you stop giving. And this is the truth that changes everything, because you can write the most perfect goodbye in the world and still stay emotionally trapped if your behavior keeps the door open. You can send a calm, mature, beautifully written line and still undo it the next day with a "just checking in," or a late night reply, or a soft forgiveness that arrives before repair. And if that happens, the words didn't fail, the boundary did. Because avoidant dynamics are not held together by love alone, they are held together by access. Access to your warmth, access to your attention, access to your emotional labor, access to your forgiveness, access to the version of you that keeps trying even when it hurts. And as long as they have access, they don't have to face the full reality of losing you. So when we talk about the goodbye that triggers regret, what we're really talking about is what changes when you're gone, not what you say on the way out. Regret doesn't come from a sentence. Regret comes from the absence of everything you used to provide: the stability, the patience, the emotional safety net, the constant understanding, the reassurance that made their inconsistency feel consequence-free. And I want you to feel how powerful that is, because it means you don't need to perform. You don't need to craft a shattering paragraph. You don't need to find the cruel line that makes them hurt. You simply need to stop giving the things that kept them comfortable while you were uncomfortable. The first thing you stop giving is immediate access. Immediate access is the addictive part of this dynamic. They disappear, they return, and you respond quickly because you're relieved. You respond quickly because you miss them. You respond quickly because your nervous system is craving connection like oxygen. But immediate access teaches them that no matter how they treat you, they can always return to your warmth. It teaches them that the door doesn't really close, it only swings. And when the door always swings, there is no loss to fear. So you stop giving immediate access, not to play games, but to stop rewarding inconsistency. You take your time, you breathe, you respond from steadiness, not urgency. You show your nervous system that you will not sprint towards someone just because they finally knocked. The second thing you stop giving is emotional labor. Emotional labor is the invisible work you've been doing for too long: the soothing, the explaining, the translating, the calming, the reassuring, the smoothing over, the being the bigger person even when you were the one bleeding. Emotional labor is you making the relationship feel stable, even when their behavior is unstable. Emotional labor is you carrying the weight of two people, because one person is scared of their own feelings. When you stop giving emotional labor, the dynamic collapses, because they can no longer rely on you to make their avoidance comfortable. They have to face their own discomfort. They have to sit with the consequences of silence. They have to feel what it's like when you stop filling the gaps. The third thing you stop giving is unlimited understanding. Understanding is beautiful, but unlimited understanding becomes permission. Unlimited understanding becomes you excusing behavior that keeps hurting you. It becomes you accepting the same pattern again and again because you can see their wounds. It becomes you calling your pain patience. And the avoidant will gladly accept unlimited understanding because it allows them to stay the same while you keep adapting. So you stop giving understanding without change. You can still have compassion, but you don't let compassion become self-betrayal. You stop saying, "It's okay," when it's not. You stop acting like disappearing is normal. You stop making room for behavior that makes you smaller. The fourth thing you stop giving is second chances without repair. This is the part that breaks hearts the most. Because you've been forgiving faster than they've been changing. You've been reopening the door because you missed them, not because they proved consistency. You've been accepting apologies that weren't followed by action. You've been accepting returns that weren't followed by responsibility. So you stop giving second chances without repair. Repair means accountability. Repair means effort. Repair means consistency over time, not one emotional message. Repair means they address the pattern, not just the moment. And if they can't repair, they don't get the same access. That is not punishment, that is protection. The fifth thing you stop giving is the version of you that is always available to be half-loved. This is the deepest one, because it's not about texting, it's about identity. It's about you no longer being the person who waits, who hopes, who stays open no matter how you're treated, who turns crumbs into comfort, who lowers standards to keep proximity. Because the avoidant often stays comfortable, not because they're confident you'll stay forever, but because they believe you'll keep trying. They believe you'll keep forgiving. They believe your love will outlast their inconsistency. And the moment you stop being that version of you, the moment you become the woman who can love and still walk away, the entire dynamic changes. And this is why the goodbye that shatters them isn't loud. It's quiet. It's consistent. It's the shock of realizing that your warmth is no longer free. Your presence is no longer guaranteed. Your emotional availability is no longer on standby. It's the shock of realizing that you meant what you said, and the door that used to reopen has stayed closed. But I need you to hold something even more important than their regret, your healing. Because if you make this goodbye about triggering regret, you will keep watching for signs. You will keep reading meaning into their silence. You will keep checking for reactions. You will keep waiting for proof that your absence worked. And that waiting is another version of chasing. It's chasing without texting, but still chasing. So the real goodbye message is the one you send to yourself. I will not return to what breaks me. I will not reward inconsistency with access. I will not keep offering love where it is not protected. I will not make my peace dependent on someone's fear. And yes, if they feel regret, it will come from the loss of what you stopped giving, the steady presence, the emotional support, the easy access, the forgiving heart that held the connection together. But even if they never feel regret, your goodbye still becomes powerful, because for the first time, you stop giving your love away in pieces and calling it devotion. For the first time, you choose a love that includes you. For the first time, you stop shattering yourself just to keep someone from leaving. So let your goodbye be more than words. Let it be a new pattern. Let it be a boundary you keep. Let it be the moment you stop being endlessly available to be half-loved. Because that is the message they will feel the most. The one you live, the one you keep, the one that finally says, I choose me.